Welcome to another episode of 20 Minutes with Troy, where I sit down with a wide variety of professionals to uncover and discuss the issues that dentists face in their personal and practice lives. These interviews are an extension of the work of my firm, Advisory Resource Group, which has been assisting the needs of dentists and medical professionals as an advisor and a consultant for more than 15 years. Stay tuned at the end of this episode to learn more about Advisory Resource Group and the offer that I make to every dentist who finds value in this series. Thank you for joining another episode with 20 Minutes with Troy. I am very excited today to have Nancy Kagan from Summit Dental Partners with me. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Absolutely. So Nancy, why don't we start by, could you give me a sense of sort of a quick overview of who Summit is and what types of things you do for dentists and their practices?
Sure, I'd be happy to. This is Summit's 16th year. I started Summit Dental Partners after a fairly long career in dentistry, but the bulk of it being in practice management. And I always felt that there was a lot of content for dental staff to learn about managing and running their dental practice. There were, you could go to seminars and lectures and read trade journals, but I always felt that the implementation piece was the toughest. I know even as a manager, it was always hard for me to take what I learned and actually get it to put it into play actually in the practice, because once you get back to work, you're kind of pumped up, but you get busy and time goes by. So I always felt that was a void in the kind of the consulting space. So that was the space that I wanted to occupy. So I started Summit Dental Partners to actually kind of be the hand holder. That's what we like to say. We like to say we hold your hand till you're ready to let go. So we help you with the content, but we also help you make it real for your office, and make sure that you have a good foundation for your business, and that foundation has to be really strong systems that are written, that are measurable, and that are managed by a well-trained team, and that's what we help you do.
If you were to bullet point kind of quickly some of the services, some of the things that you provide, what might they be?
Well, it's very customized and very specific to the practice, but generally when someone calls to inquire about our services, there's something that prompted them to make the call. So we always want to listen to our docs and to our clients and make sure that we know what the main issues that they're dealing with are. What are the big pain points? What are they hoping for us to accomplish by being in there? And it's all about kind of it's like peeling open the onion and putting it back together again. It's like we kind of take things apart and we look at everything. We don't leave anything to chance. We don't want to guess about the health of the business. So we literally spend a day in the office with almost all of our assignments. We start with a day there, and we are watching, we are listening, we are running all the reports we can in the software. We interview the team. We really do almost like a comp exam, like a new patient exam, and we take all that data, and from there we not only address the kind of the metrics or the KPIs, where are you and where should you be, but we talk about how we can help you get there, and also how we can help you to create a really strong protocol notebook, if you will, where everything is written. We use screenshots from the software so that if a staff member leaves, we don't ever want docs to feel like they're a hostage. Nobody knows how to do these things. We want to make sure that the practice is system dependent, not staff dependent.
Sure. Tell me a little bit about Summit's philosophy.
Well, I think our philosophy is that if you're going to own a dental practice, but you're going to be providing the care, it's very difficult to do both. So I think philosophically, we just want to make the running of the business as easy as possible and as kind of seamless as possible for our docs. Philosophically, we just want you to kind of always be aware of what's going on in your business, but not to have to devote hours and hours and days to that. We don't like stressed out docs who are seeing patients all day and spending hours at night. So philosophically, it's really about empowering your team, giving them the tools to succeed, making sure everyone is on the right seat in the right seat on the bus? If you want them on the bus, are they in the right seat? Do they have the tools? And making sure that they are empowered to be responsible and accountable, so that the burden on the owner doc is not overwhelming because these things aren't in place.
Sure, that's important. Tell me about pain points that you're seeing right now. When you're, the calls that you're getting, are there certain themes that you're seeing? What are some of the pain points that are really popular or real right now?
Right. Well, I think staffing is really challenging in dental practices. I started a temp agency many years ago called Dental Temporaries, and back then we saw trends in dentistry. There were lots of hygienists and not as many jobs, and vice versa. But today it is really challenging to get good team members. And I think since the licensing of dental assistants, I think there's been a lot of confusion, and a lot of assistants have left the field because there was some confusion about whether they needed to be certified in Massachusetts or just licensed. So we lost a lot of really good dental assistants. So that market is really tight. So I think staffing is really difficult. Training staff is really challenging. Sometimes people are walking into positions that the person has already left, and there's no training and there's no opportunity to really get someone kind of off on the right foot, if you will. It's one of our favorite things to do, is to train people and get them to do it the right way right off the bat. But I think that staffing and all that entails is the biggest pain point. A lot of times people don't have time to get tasks done. Things don't get done. Things drop off. Accounts receivable, all of those kind of tasks that we have to do in addition to dealing with the patients tend to fall off when that happens. And then, then you get into cash flow issues. And, we always try to listen to our docs and hear what's going on. And it's because of that I started an outsourcing division at Summit, where we do revenue cycle management for dental practices. And I have 6 people in that division in the last probably 6 or 8 months, just doing those tasks for dental offices. We're taking kind of those things out of the practice so that the staff that's there can deal with patient care.
Tell us a little more about what that looks like.
So what we do is we do everything. We can do anything that doesn't require direct patient face-to-face contact. So we post all the insurance checks for the practice. We send out the patient statements. We track and monitor the outstanding claims. We are working with patients on patient balances and patient AR. Sometimes we're doing eligibility and benefit checking for our offices. We're even in some offices figuring out co-payments for them because they just don't have anybody on staff to do that. Some of these are our clients, and we're training while we're and this is a vehicle for them while we're getting the staff up and running. Sometimes it's intended to be short-term for maternity leaves or someone out on a medical. And in some cases, people just see the value in, if I don't have my staff doing this, then they can work on treatment planning. They can work on my schedule. They can work on engaging in customer service with my patients. So it's really been a win-win. It's exploding a bit for us, and we have a great crew, and they're all experienced dental staff. So that I know that when we take care of the practice accounts receivable, it stays in a healthy place.
And are you seeing practices at all stages utilize those services? Is it somebody who's sort of smaller and growing, who's maybe not ready for a full-time office manager yet, or are you finding where are you seeing these?
Yes and yes. We have quite a few large practices. I think there's great value there, and I think there's probably a kind of a connection to instead of hiring an employee to do this full time, we'll just outsource it, and we won't have to, take on the employee expenses or add another person to the practice. Sometimes it's a space issue, but we are doing it for some startups who can't hire staff. We are, I guess, really we're across the board. We have a couple of transitions where they're going through some staff changes, or they're refocusing the staff on treatment planning. Sometimes when a practice has been transitioned, it's an older model, so there's so much that has to change internally for the staff that they pull this from the practice to make sure it stays healthy.
And geographically, is this all done virtually, or is this something that? Okay.
Yep, it's all done. We log into the practice computer, and it's all done virtually. And we have a wonderful person that kind of keeps all those balls in the air for Summit, and we communicate with our docs weekly. They have, or as often as they want. It's pretty customized in terms of communication about how often they want to know where we're at and what's happening, but I know they can feel it in the checkbook, so usually they're pretty happy.
That's great. That's great. Tell me about other pain points, other things that you're seeing. So staffing, and I'd echo that as well. I hear the staffing burden, almost daily. What other types of things are you seeing?
Yeah, I think that working with the hygiene departments is a challenge. Sometimes practices have hygienists who've been working for a really long time, or patients who've been coming in for a really long time, and sometimes bringing new ideas to those practices can be more challenging. Making sure that that the hygiene department is operating within industry norms, and is a third of the production is coming from that department, and that it's got, probably we like to see 25% of that to 30% of that coming from periodontal coatings. So, bringing our practices from where they are to where we think they need to be is a real challenge, because oftentimes it's a big dialogue change for the hygienist with existing patients to kind of bring them forward in in accordance with these changes. We just are so lucky to have hired a hygiene consultant who's working with us now at Summit. She's a Forsyth instructor and a working hygienist, and we're really excited to have her on board, because I think it's going to give us just that much more ability to really reach out to the hygienist. So we spend a lot of time working with hygiene teams. That I'd say is another kind of pain point, if you will, that we hear about from our practices, and I think most of it is just the limited knowledge that the doctor has versus the presumed knowledge that the staff has, especially the administrative staff, and docs feeling like they just don't know what's going on. I mean, I hear that a lot. I'm not really sure what's going on. The schedule isn't busy. I'm not sure what they're doing. They look busy. They seem to be doing stuff. I don't know what they're doing. And, in our world, we have to measure everything, no guessing. So there isn't anything that a staff member does administratively that we're not quantifying to make sure it's working, to figure out what's working. What works in one practice doesn't always work in another. So we have to, work with the team to make sure that they understand the value of measuring and having systems in place. So I think
Sure.
A lot of times that's the question. I don't feel like I have any systems in place. I don't really know what's happening.
So, the fact that you're working in the back of the house and the front of the house, do you feel as if that, makes you a little bit unique in some of the services that you offer? If you look at some of the sort of the corporate consulting value propositions and so forth are out there, what would you say differentiates Summit, and is that one of those things that you'd feel is a differentiation, being able to sort of get on the ground, get your hands dirty on both sides?
Right. I mean, certainly I don't think we have a monopoly on this market, but for us,
Sure.
we like to say we're on the ground floor. We are sitting next to the person at the front desk. We are coaching them with verbal skills. We're not asking them to watch anything or read anything or listen to us talk. We're right there. We don't necessarily want patients to be canceled. We want to see things in real time. We want to be able to look at the flow. What's the patient's experience when they go from the front door and they come back to the front door? How is the patient transition through the practice? We're watching everything, and I think it's really ground floor. I mean, I could tell you that one of my consultants, apparently there was someone called out sick, and she was there on an ortho day, and it was mayhem, and she threw a lab coat on and she was seating patients. I mean, so sometimes we take it to a really far extreme, but in that case, she just felt like that the chaos that was coming from there being down an assistant with a heavy ortho schedule, she just felt that's where her value would be. So we want the team to see that we're right here with you. It's not unusual even for one of our consultants to check a patient out and have someone watch and listen, and then we watch them do it. So it's that hands-on, I think, and I like to think that makes us pretty unique, and we carry that through to our relationships with our practices, and that we are always available, and we're always talking to our docs and even the staff, and really trying to make sure that they see us as their partner, which is kind of why I put partner in the name of them.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about that. What's a typical engagement look like? Is it somebody just utilizing you for a short period of time? Is it someone who is kind of with you for the long run? What does that generally look like?
Well, it is a combination of both, but we have a model that tends to engage us for the long term. I mean, my first client is still a client. So we oftentimes, when we have a really strong book and we feel like we've got a really well-trained team, assuming that that team stays and nothing changes in that space, we might go in once a month and do a staff meeting. We may, we have offices we go in once a week and we monitor them very closely. These are offices without, that don't have quote managers, and we function in that capacity. And then we've had one and done, where there was an issue and we went in. I once had an issue with a doc who had two hygienists that he loved, but they weren't talking to each other, and the stress was really getting to him. And I took the hygienist to lunch, and we determined that no, they were probably never going to be friends, but they both loved him. And once they realized the stress it was causing, they agreed to not let it, cross over into the practice. And I've never been back. So, sometimes it's that short, but most of the time we stay engaged. We have many practices that we book out. We have regular visits. I meet with hygiene teams a lot, in many of our offices. So I guess we do a little bit of everything, but the majority of times we do stay engaged on some level.
Perfect. So one of the things that I'm seeing a fair amount lately, especially with the lack of inventory available for practices, is that dentists are finding themselves more in that position of, do I stay as an associate or do I create that startup? Tell me a little bit about your support services on the startup side, where that is such a trend right now.
Right. Yeah, we do a lot of startups. It's probably the ultimate in hand-holding. We like to get involved pretty early in the process once a location has been secured. And Marissa Thompson, who's one of my consultants, is the one that really works with the majority, if not all, of our startups. She's kind of got a real strong creative side to her, so she's really great at helping with marketing strategies and things like that. So we are hiring staff. It's not uncommon for a startup to take a non-dental person to be at the front desk because of cost. So we have a training program that we have in place where we start with terminology and we take them all the way through while we're waiting for the practice to open so that they're ready. We're helping with marketing. We're not a marketing company, but we do a lot of help, and we have a lot of great partners in that space that we work with and stay engaged in on behalf of the doctor that's doing the startup. And credentialing, determining what plans should I be in network with, which ones shouldn't I, what's my community like, and how do I engage in my community. So it's all the kind of the prep leading up to the opening, and then we're usually there a fair amount on opening day and moving forward. Now we're doing this in real time, so let's be a support to our docs during the real time. So we usually recommend our startups, they purchase about 80 hours of our time, and that's, that gets them through up to opening, usually halfway, and then that gives them the support once they open the doors, because we've got to train our docs too. They need to know, what reports do I look at? How do I know if something isn't right? How often do I look at this? So we're also training the docs to be good owners and good employers.
And when how early in the process do you want to start being involved?
Well, it's not uncommon once a location is secured that we would get involved at that time, because we like to start the buzz. We like to look at the community and start getting out there and letting people know that it's coming, and making sure that the marketing efforts start early in terms of construction, Facebook pages, pictures of the practice going up, all the things that you need to do to kind of create the anticipation in the community that the practice is coming. And that's when we start with the credentialing, which is a very, very challenging part of that today, because it's taking, insurance companies a really long time to get people on board. So sometimes even 90 days. So we try to do that pretty early on. We're making decisions together about which plans make sense, getting fee schedules, trying to determine, when they should go in network, what they should hold off on, things like that. And, and then talking about just in general about how they want to staff the office, and hours and fee schedules and all the details.
How about on the acquisition side? What type of supports do you guys provide?
That's actually one of my favorite things to do. Is I like to be able to take a new owner and make sure they understand what they're buying. I do a lot of due diligence, going in with the buyers into the practice and really going through the software and just making sure they know what they're buying. I'm not a broker, so I'm not in a position to say you should buy it or you shouldn't, but I am going to tell you what you need to know. The things that I see that are not being done correctly that I'm going to want you to do differently. So we go through that. It's kind of like education 101 for practice ownership as we go through all those reports and we discuss the practice in detail so that they go in with their eyes wide open and they know what they have to do when they get in there. And interestingly, it's not uncommon for the seller to be there. And sometimes we end up doing a little work for the seller before the practice is sold, helping them to amp up and collect all their accounts receivable that they can, or to kind of, in some cases, they're willing and want to clean things up so that they're not passing something off to a new buyer that's not in great shape. And they were often unaware that it was even happening. So that's an ironic thing that we never thought would happen, but we often get the call from the seller afterwards saying, can you guys come in and just help me make that right? So, and then again, we like to be there on the, when the doc is meeting the team. Ironically, Blake is going to meet a team Saturday night this week. We didn't know it was at night, but that's what he's going to do, and he's going to go with the doctor. They're having a dinner and meet the team. So we like to be there as a support for the doc when they, walk in the door and have to meet everyone, and we want to be a support for the team. Everybody's very nervous and very anxious, and we try to be a calming force and to make sure people's questions get answered and they get answered appropriately, and that we're there to help with the changes that inevitably have to be made in the way they've been doing business.
Perfect. How about on the transitioning, sort of retiring doctor? Is that a service that you provide? Is that, where might they lean on you for someone who's saying, that they're knowing that step is coming? Is that a side that you're helping with as well, or not so much?
Well, I mean, we'd love to. It's a great value to someone selling their practice to maximize the accounts receivable so that they're not giving anything away, to kind of paying attention to the business, because the better the business is run, the better the value is to a potential buyer. I mean, I've gone in many cases and pointed things out, and it has impacted the price because some of the data wasn't accurate, and so it's impactful on your ability to maximize what you can get for your practice. I think it would be in everybody's best interest to have an outsider come in and let them know how they can maximize things, get ready for the sale, so that they are not only passing their practice off in the best possible shape, but maximizing what they can take out of the practice, before they sell it. Because a lot of AR gets lost it can be very hard to watch someone who's been working their whole career and have to tell them that, you've got, way too much money out there for too long and it's not collectible, and you can't sell it to the buyer because it's not collectible, and they think, well, maybe I should have tried to collect it while I could.
So again, as a best practice, when would you want to be in for that doctor who's beginning to give thought to that transition? And again, I mean, in my practice, I talk about, I want to be having a conversation 10 years in advance of the transition. So I can also appreciate that, it's probably never too early, but for someone that's getting closer, what, is there an optimal time at least that you want to be in having that conversation?
Well, it would seem to me that it could be it could be peace of mind to someone, a year before they were going to list their practice, if they could, know the shape it's in and have time to make correction if they needed to. So I would say, I mean, you could say 6 months, but it depends. Sometimes it can take that long to clean up. I mean, we see that more often than I wish I could tell you, that we go in there and have to give them some kind of unpleasant news.
Yeah, super. How about on the, sort of a basic question, but geography? Are you everywhere, Nancy? Is there anywhere you're not going, or?
Yeah, it feels that way. We don't, right now, we're really not flying. And I just don't know, we're not adverse to it, but it just doesn't feel like our model works if we're not close enough. So we're all over New England. We do a fair amount of overnights. We're based in Southern Mass, so we do a lot of overnight visits where we'll drive up the night before, spend a couple of days back to back in the office and, get things done. But the bulk of our work it's all within driving distance, and we do a lot of that. A lot of
yeah, Blake always talks about how he's paid on mileage, and
that's the only way I get him to do it. I mean, it's really hard because it's I mean, certainly you can use your phone, I suppose, but I mean, sometimes it's 4 hours a day on the road. It gets to you. It can be kind of grueling, but
sure. And utilizing technology like this, I imagine, as well.
So funny how when you're driving, it's frustrating, and and then while you walk in the office, it's like you totally forget it as soon as you walk in. I mean, once we're there, where it's all good, it's just it's lost time a little bit, because we can't do much with that time that's valuable, because we do a lot of communication with our docs after hours, and we always think, boy, we'll know we've made it when we all have a driver and we can do our work while we're being driven back and forth to our locations. We're not there yet, but.
Right. Uber Black, I think they call that.
That's right. That's on the wish list for the team.
So, and I can say, firsthand, Nancy, I've appreciated working with you and the value that you've provided for my clients. And, I can say that I think that being on the ground and being local, to me, does make a big difference. I think it does for my practice as well. And, as I have clients all over the country, I think those that I can sort of be right there on the ground with, get my hands dirty, I think there's a lot more to be said about that, and I think there is for your practice as well. So I can tell you firsthand that I appreciate it, and I think your services have been invaluable to many of my clients. So I appreciate that.
Glad to hear it, and I certainly always appreciate your referrals. You send us people that are very, very ready, and we like that.
Is there anything in closing that you'd like everyone out there to know? Is there anything else at Summit that you're focusing on or looking at in the future, or words to the wise for people who are listening today?
Well, I think that that any business, my own included, I mean, I have a coach and someone who, even the best athletes have coaches. I think that dentists, understand the value of consulting. I think it's really important that you find someone that you feel you share almost a chemistry with, or someone you think can really understand, someone who you think can really help your practice. I don't pretend that we're the fit for everyone. If you have a big practice that's thriving and you want to take it to another level, we're probably not the consultants for you. We don't have any contracts with any of our docs. We like to work together because we're doing the right things for each other. We're making progress, and you're appreciating the benefit of that. So I think if it's anything, I'd say it can never hurt to have an outside, someone from the outside come in and give you an honest, unbiased assessment of where your business is at, because there's nothing worse for us than going in to talk to someone after 20 years or 25 years and have to tell them some bad news. And we have to do that a fair amount, and we hear the same thing: I wish I'd known about you sooner. So I say, if anybody's considering even hiring any consultant, there is great value to having that objective eye on your business.
Absolutely. I would echo that as well. I think that's incredibly important and something that's so easy to get overlooked when you're in the daily grind. But taking that step back is something that I talk about regularly, and I think it's incredibly important in really all areas of your life.
Right.
But certainly as it relates to the business, it's easy to let those cancers continue to grow, and it's important to take that step back. Well, Nancy, thanks so much for your time today and being with us and sharing sort of all that's good about Summit and the things that you and your team do. So I will have your contact information below, so if anybody would like to reach out to you directly, they can. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of 20 Minutes with Troy. My firm, Advisory Resource Group, has been assisting the needs of dentists and medical professionals at all stages of their careers for more than 15 years. I'm both a financial advisor and a practice consultant, acting as a problem solver and facilitator to provide one-stop shopping for those seeking strategies, advice, and connections for the challenges that accompany every stage of their personal and practice lives. As a co-pilot and a friend, I assist my clients through the navigation of practice purchase, succession, expansion, attraction and retention of team members, partnership and associate planning, refinancing, and a myriad of other advisory, investment, insurance, and retirement services. I make the offer to meet with every dentist by phone or in person to introduce them to my firm. I don't assume that anyone has a need or interest in our services. My goal is to learn about any pain points they may be experiencing and to establish myself as a resource, whether it be for now or in the future. Please take advantage of this no cost or obligation offer by contacting my office or visiting advisoryresourcegroup.com.